Hi, I'm Al Turner, and you're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com. We're coming to you today on location from the 2020 NAMM show in Anaheim, California. And look who I ran into, my fellow Detroiter, or at least former Detroiter, Al Turner. Still a Detroiter, yes. Al Turner. How you doing, Al?
I'm doing great, John. Good to see you as always.
Good to see you. We bumped into each other last night. We were getting our badges for the show, and I said, "Hey," I said, "That's Al Turner," didn't I?
You sure did. After I reminded you who I was. But yes, it's always a pleasure to see you, man.
Thank you. It's great to see you too. We did an interview. How many years ago was that? No, at least a couple, 3 years ago, something like that.
More.
Okay.
4 or 5, something.
I think we talked about Detroit. We talked maybe about Earl Klugh, and your previous record.
Yes.
Was released around that time or before that time?
It was around that time. It was 2000, I want to say 14, 15 maybe?
Simply Amazing, right?
Simply Amazing, yes.
Simply Amazing is the title. And I know you've got another new record that's out already, but I just wanted to sit down with you because you're an old friend and you're a Detroiter, and we did the interview a while back, so I wanted to give the folks a chance to get caught up and hear from you what's new. So what's going on?
Well, I have the new record, I'm also still Earl Klugh's music director, and I'm also music director for another Detroiter, Kem. And I've been with Kem for, probably 15, 16 years, maybe 17, who's counting. But we're working on his new record as well, and we're getting ready to do a big tour coming up this year, so.
Okay, is Detroit going to be on that tour?
Detroit will be on that tour, I'm sure. Okay. We always do Detroit.
And just to get the title right, because you said it kind of quickly, I want to make sure they've got it. It's called This Is. That's the new.
This is
This is from Al Turner.
Yes, it is.
Tell me, when did that come out? It's new, right?
It actually came out in 2018, or the end of 2018, early 2019.
So it's newish.
It's my latest.
It's your latest.
It's my latest. So it's still new. And I did the record. I used my good friend Ron Otis, who's a drummer with Earl Klugh and Kem as well. He's on most of the record, and a bunch of other friends. As with all my records, I usually call a bunch of my friends in to help me record the record. So it's a good record.
Okay.
It's a very good record.
I haven't heard it yet, but I enjoyed the first one very much.
Well, thank you.
Tell us how this one compares to the first one. Is it more of the same good quality stuff, or did you go in a different direction, or how is it the same and or different?
Well, I like to describe it as the same direction, but there's a lot of growth, I feel, as a writer, a player, producer, that kind of stuff. So this is actually my 5th record. And I look at each record as a growth to the next level, from where I was, from the prior record. So it's a lot of good record, a lot of good songs on the record, and a lot of good playing. So, yeah, check it out. You told me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will. I haven't heard it, and I like it already. So obviously you're keeping busy with Earl and with Kem, and is there anything else, and the new record? Are you working on another new record? Because this one's been out for almost 2 years. Get busy, Al. What are you doing?
Still working. I'm always writing, and I also have I'm involved with another group. Myself, Ron Otis, and Tom Braxton, who's a saxophone player in Earl Klugh's band. We have a group called ART, Al, Ron, and Tom, and we have a single that we did, and we're finishing up that record as well. So, working with that band and starting to work on my new material as well.
Okay, so that will eventually culminate into a whole album, enough material for a new album.
Absolutely, yes,
okay.
It is.
And what are you shooting for in terms of release date?
I never shoot for a date because I always shoot myself in the foot when I say, okay, it'll be done.
It'll be done when it's done.
Yes, because I want it to be. We want it to be the best that it can be. So we're not going to rush it. It will be done this year, though.
You know what you should call it? You should call it This Is Simply Amazing.
Well,
that would confuse people.
We should have a song called This Is Simply Amazing.
There you go.
We should do that. I like that. I like that title, and thank you. I'll give you credit for that.
Let's talk about your gear. What are you playing these days?
Well, I am a longtime Ken Smith endorsee. I still play my Ken Smiths. I have 6-string, 5-strings. I also play Sadowski basses. Roger's been very good. He's made a great bass that I use. I take on the road and I record with it a lot. I also play a 59 P bass, all original, and it's just, you know about P basses, especially 1959.
And I know about Ken Smith basses, and I know about Sadowski basses. I just went to Germany with Roger Sadowski in December for the big announcement with him and Warwick. Mm-hmm. But I could see how you could love the Ken Smith bass, the Roger Sadowski, the Sadowski bass and the Fender P bass all differently, because they each bring a different quality and a different feel, a different sound. Is that right?
Absolutely. They all have their own thing, their own character, and for different songs I hear different timbres, and I play most of the melodies on the 6-string Ken Smith, but on this record I actually played some of the melodies on the P bass and the Sadowski, so I use them for different songs.
How many strings on the Sadowski?
There's 5.
Okay.
I only play 4 though.
Okay.
No, I'm joking. We had an ongoing joke back in the day when 5 strings became very popular. We used to say this 5th string is a producer string. Okay. You heard that before, right?
What kind of strings do you play?
Well, on the Sadowski I use his strings. Yeah. On the Ken Smith I use his strings.
Okay.
And on the P bass I actually use D'Addario.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. What about amps and anything else? So you're not really heavy into effects, are you?
Not at all.
I didn't think so.
I was on tour. We did a big tour a few years ago, and I had this big pedal board put together. I took it on, put it on the truck because we were trucking our gear around. And every night the roadie would set it up, and I never used any effect.
Well, I hope he's not watching.
Well, I ended up just saying, you know what, scrap this. But, I'm not a big user of effects. A lot of guys use them, but I'm a pretty basic guy. I like a good, clean, strong bass signal. And
you use maybe flat wounds on the P bass, maybe?
You know what, sometimes. But right now I have it strung with round wounds, and they're kind of dead. So I kind of get the best of both worlds,
I understand.
But yeah, I like the round wound sound on it.
Yeah, I did embarrass somebody I was interviewing last year, and I said, and he let me play the bass before the interview. I said, are those flat wound strings? He says, no, they're just really old. What about amps? What kind of amps do you play?
I use Aguilar.
Oh,
right now I use Aguilar. I've been endorsing Aguilar for some time, and on the road I use the 2 410 cabinets and the 751 head.
Okay.
And it works for me.
Yeah.
But a lot of the shows that we do, especially with Kim, some of them are in arenas or big auditoriums, and we're all on in-ears.
Yeah.
So the amplifier, I really don't get to hear what the amp is doing on the stage, but the house guy, he has a mic on the speaker cabinet, and I go direct. Yeah. So the amp is kind of like a secondary thing for me.
Yeah, who was it? John Cowan from the Doobie Brothers, I think, or somebody like that. I asked him about amps. He says we don't use amps at all. It's only the in-ears.
Yes, I know some guys, some Nashville guys as well.
Yes.
No amps on the stage.
Well, that will make the schleppers happier, right? They don't have to lug.
And the sound guys love it,
Yeah.
because you don't have to deal with the on-stage volume.
It's a whole new way of doing everything.
Yeah, I love in-ears. I love it because I can get the exact mix that I like to hear in my ears, and I don't have to fight with anybody else's monitor.
Yeah.
Because and I never really liked the way monitors sound with the bass coming out of it. For some reason, it's like every blue moon you get a good monitor system, and the bass sounds like what you really want it to sound.
Just to underscore how things have changed so much. My son got married last year.
Oh.
And I was sitting in with the band. No, not that son, my older son. and at a wedding, the what? I said, where's the amp? You know, I didn't have an amp. I sat in with the band. We're playing You Can Call Me Al, and I did the slap solo, the Bagiti Kumalo, and we did some other stuff. And my younger son did perform. He sang something. But anyway, just to make a point that even at something like a wedding, it's not out of the question not to have a bass amp at all, which I find very interesting. I want to ask you a question about bass technique.
Okay.
Because people know us for our interviews, but we have all the instructional content now on For Bass Players Only, which has really grown popular very fast. So I want to know if you can impart some advice to our members about, what do you think is important if you want to learn to play the bass? What should they be focused on? What's your take on that?
Well, I would say, first and foremost, get with a good teacher, right? Because a good teacher can help a young player, if they're just starting off, to develop good technique and eliminate a lot of bad habits. I find that when I teach a lot of players, I have to go back and just develop a good technique for the bass, right? And it's very important that you listen to a lot of music, a lot of different types of music. If you just like one style of music, then you're going to be just that, But even if you just play one style of music, it's always good to listen to a lot of different things, because you get a lot of good ideas that you can use and incorporate into whatever kind of music that you're playing, I'm a big advocate of learning how to read music. Not enough musicians, feel that it's important, but it's very important. A lot of guys don't have situations where they're required to read music, but reading music is so important in a lot of ways, because you can get music from other instruments, apply it to the bass. You can learn songs quicker.
I used to work out of a lot of trombone books because of the way they're written. It lays on the bass great.
And I bet you were in the Bach cello suite as well, right?
Yes.
So, and a lot
My hand still hurts just thinking.
right. In a lot of situations that I work in, it saves time, when you're in a situation where you only have one rehearsal, whatever, and everybody's got charts.
Yes.
And it's just, it's so important, I think, and I can't stress that enough. So.
You mentioned being able to do everything. You just reminded me at University of Miami. I was in the jazz program, but I also played in the orchestra. And the conductor called everybody into his office one at a time. We were playing Stravinsky and I think some Rimsky-Korsakov, and I don't know what all we were playing. And there was some pretty intricate stuff. And the Stravinsky is there's a bar of 4 and then a bar of 5/8 and then a bar of 7, whatever it is. And I played the part. I nailed it. Okay. And he looked at me. He said, "Are you a jazz major?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I thought so. Seems like the jazz guys can play pretty much everything, more than just the narrow focus. Not that, I'm not putting down classical players. I'm just making an observation. That's all."
Right. And I understand what you're saying, because the thing about reading music, you have to make the music come alive. You got to make it jump off the page, and that's where being a jazz musician, you have the ability to bring in, an element of swing, if you will. You can make it swing.
You remind me of something else. With Nate Watts, I've interviewed.
I just ran into Nate.
Is he running around here?
Yes, I just saw him.
But he said, yeah, you got to play the part that's given to you and play what's expected of you, but then sign it.
Absolutely.
Make it yours. And I've talked about that a few times. I thought, wow, that is great.
That was one of the things when, back in the 80s when I was in the recording studio a lot in Detroit. I worked with Michael Powell, played on a lot of records that he produced. He would always say, put your signature on it at some point, because
so that wasn't a Nate original?
Well, yes, I'll give Nate credit, but it's something where it's very important that you have a signature sound that's identifiable as a musician. I think that's it's the most important thing, I think, because it's your voice. It's just like when you call, I know it's you. Your speaking voice. It's the same thing musically. When you play, you should have something to say.
one more reference, and then I'll stop. But I interviewed Brian Beller last year from the Aristocrats, and he says you can learn somebody else's stuff, learn to play their music, but you're not going to sound like them. You're going to sound like your version of them.
Absolutely. Okay. And if they want them, they're going to call them.
That's right. All right. I think we made our point here. Let me ask you one more question.
Sure.
Al, what would you be if, I don't remember if I asked you this last time or not, so I'll ask you, what would you be if you weren't a bass player?
You know, you asked that question before, and I probably would say the same answer. I like to tinker with gadgets, computers and things like that. So it would probably be something in the technical field, like computer programming, something like that,
Okay. About an hour ago, I interviewed Kevin Keith about 50 yards from here, and he's a stick player.
Right.
And I asked him that question, and he gave me pretty much the same answer.
Yeah.
Coding and computers and all of that stuff.
Because I use computers a lot in...
Did you two talk before the interviews?
No. Now that a lot of recording studios have gone out of business, everybody's got a recording studio at home. So we use computers to record on. Nobody has big tape machines anymore. Some studios still have tape machines, but you can do so much with the computer. I have my laptop. I carry it everywhere I go, so I'm always in a little interface. So I'm always capable of recording something wherever I am. So, the computer thing is something that just naturally falls into that, that space where I'd say, this would probably be it.
All right. Pulling from all sources, though, and it's made you a great musician and a great sounding musician. So keep it up. Congratulations on the latest record.
Yes,
this is, and we will watch for the new one when it gets done.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thanks again, Al. On location with our good friend Al Turner at the 2020 NAMM show in Anaheim, California. I'm John Liebman. You're watching the #1 site for exclusive one-on-one bass player interviews and more people's favorite site for learning bass online. That's forBassPlayersOnly.com. Once again, I'm John Liebman. Let's play bass.